This is Atlas Network with Michael Carnuccio.
Hi, and welcome to Atlas Network. I'm Michael Carnuccio, and you know at Atlas Network, we like the worldwide freedom movement, human dignity, individual freedom, free markets. We're concerned about liberty, and more important, the leaders that are involved in telling their personal stories. And today I'm excited to have on someone who's not only a friend, but is someone who is probably one of the more impactful leaders we have right now in the worldwide freedom movement, and that's Atlas Network President Matt Warner. Matt, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure. Good to see you, Michael.
Great to see you again. And Matt, I said you're the president of Atlas Network, but I wonder if someone is at a dinner party or you're out at an event and they say, Matt, what do you do? How do you answer that question?
Sure. Well, thanks, Michael. I'm proud to be part of the team at Atlas Network. We have a CEO and a president. A little unusual. Brad Lipps is our CEO. I serve as our president, and in that capacity, I'm responsible for working with our core strategy team. Those are the people who are leading the departments in Coach, Compete, and Celebrate. These are the three aspects of service that we provide to independent organizations around the world to give them opportunities to increase their own impact and go further with their mission, which is aligned with ours. And then, of course, I participate along with other C-suite members in providing counsel to our CEO and contributing to the strategic direction of the organization.
So I always like to ask people, Matt, about elevator pitch, right? About what they do or how they see Atlas Network, right? It's that 10-second, 20-second where someone says, oh, I get it now. I understand. And so you've gotten this question over the years. What is Atlas Network? You know, what does that mean? So what's your elevator pitch?
Well, these days it has a little bit more resonance when I say that if you care about making the world a freer place and you are at all worried about a weaker USAID going forward, private philanthropy is the answer, and Atlas Network is one of the most compelling opportunities for advancing the aims of making the world a freer place, but drawing on all the hard lessons learned from the disappointments and failures of government-led democracy building around the world. We've had a lot of money wasted, and Atlas Network does it differently. We do it for pennies on the dollar, and we get real results.
You mentioned this lessons learned concept. We're going to talk a lot about that today because I think it's important leadership. But specifically, you also talked a second ago about Coach, Compete, Celebrate. That's not something you inherited when you came into Atlas Network. And so what is Coach, Compete, Celebrate? Why? Give us the evolution of that and what it means today, why it's so important.
Yeah. Well, we certainly inherited from our founder, Sir Anthony Fisher, the spirit of Coach, Compete, Celebrate, which is principally that people around the world are leading change in their own communities, trying to increase freedom for people, and they need our support. We have always been an organization that is deferential to local leadership, local idea entrepreneurs who are trying to secure property rights, increase opportunities to join the business community, start new businesses, create a competitive landscape, secure rule of law. And the Coach, Compete, Celebrate strategy for our organization gives us some clarity around what are the predictable ways that we can provide support to those independent organizations around the world in more than 100 countries. Of course, we understand when we think about helping others in nonprofits, financial support is an obvious way that we can support them. We do provide grants to organizations, but we also provide an opportunity to join a network of peers that are working on similar things or share a similar mission and create an environment of friendly competition, challenging each other to achieve more than we did last year, to do more with the resources that we have, And it's really important in this space to have something to compare yourself to so that you can give yourself ambitious targets and see what's possible. So in addition to grants, we provide coaching and training and peer learning, and then we provide competitive opportunities for the best outcomes to get recognition and awards. So it's Coach, Compete, Celebrate is an environment that everyone contributes to in a network. And our role at Atlas Network is not to sort of play God about who's the best and who's the worst, but to create an environment where we can all challenge each other in a spirit of friendship, but in a spirit of taking this seriously. If you work in nonprofits, you understand that there is a risk of, hey, whatever we did is probably the best we can do, and how would we know any different? And we just got to fight the good fight. That's just a starting point. We're interested in challenging that and saying, how do we know that we did the optimal best that we could have done with the resources we had? And to understand what's possible, it really helps to go and look around the world and see what others are doing. And some of the assumptions that you might make about what's possible and not possible, someone could come along and blow that out of the water, and you go, oh, wait a minute. We need to think differently about how we're operating. So it's a combination of caring about the mission, which is to make the world a freer and better place, and caring about what can nonprofits do to innovate. You have to create a margin for innovation. And that margin doesn't come just from wanting it to be there. It comes from comparing yourself to others who are also trying to wow you and wow their donors and wow themselves. And I've just seen time and time again how positively inspiring it is to get a little uncomfortable by sitting next to someone who's got the same budget as you and is achieving a lot more.
Yeah, Matt, I said on this podcast before, I'm proud to say that I'm a bit of a product of this Coach, Compete, Celebrate process from my experience as not just leading a free market organization, but in various other roles in the worldwide freedom movement, being inspired and encouraged by others, the ingenuity, the entrepreneurial approach, but the passion and the drive that's in a lot of people and what's able to be accomplished around the globe. That leads me to wonder, with everyone you've met and with all the organizations you've worked with in many different roles, if you could boil it down and say, there's one thing I wish everybody understood when they're either starting an organization or they come into an organization that is working to advance freedom around the globe, what's that one thing you think a leader needs to understand or to know that maybe oftentimes is overlooked or is not understood?
We often say that we will respect and cheer for anybody who raises their hand to do this kind of work, but we make no apologies about being judicious about where resources are spent. And I think anybody who is feels called to work in this arena, just know that wanting to make the world a better place is a wonderful thing. Wanting to challenge yourself, to ask yourself some hard questions so that you can develop as a leader and change over time to actually have better results, those are the people that we're looking for. I often say, I don't want to create some resource or training program if this is knowledge that somebody can get elsewhere, because we're not looking for someone who just says, hey, I'm happy, I'd love to run a think tank and do this. Where do I get started? I'm actually looking for the people who are going to do this without us, one way or the other, but who recognize, because they're entrepreneurial, who recognize that if they get involved with Atlas Network, they're going to save themselves a lot of time and headaches by taking advantage of all the collective wisdom that exists across our network, and to find for themselves the pieces that they need to accelerate their own impact. So leadership means fundamentally, it's not a title, it's not a role, it's caring about whether the system is going to produce the result and where the gaps are. And so I'm looking for entrepreneurs in this space who are going to do this with or without us. But if they do get involved with us, then the value proposition is they're going to go farther, faster, because of the value of the lessons that have already been learned by many others, and some of the surgical resources that we can provide, both in terms of financial support and connecting them with some really fantastic people who have a lot to share.
Brad Lips, Atlas Network CEO, you mentioned him earlier, was a guest on a previous episode of the pod, and I complimented him on this entrepreneurial approach to leadership as well. It's something that you see throughout Atlas Network, and something that's pretty inspiring about our partners in the worldwide freedom movement. And so kind of with that in mind, I'm thinking of Atlas Network Academy. It's real world kind of battle testing. You probably see a lot of light bulb moments or shifts that happen with partners that go through that. Talk to me about your experience there, or maybe the what you have noticed as being a big shift that some of our partners have when they're part of Atlas Network Academy.
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of us make in assuming, when we think about training or we think about learning new things, is that there's this knowledge transfer. You have an expert who knows something, and a student who is going to learn that from the expert. Doing this kind of work, it calls for a different kind of model in terms of learning, and what that model is peer learning, facilitated by people who understand the way adults can come together and have transformative experiences when the conditions are right. And so what I often talk about among our team is because we're out there facilitating workshops and getting people together among peers, is we do not put ourselves in the position of having the answers, but we are privileged to witness a lot of different models and a lot of different experiences across 500 partners working in 100 different countries. And we can facilitate exposure to all of those at the right times as people are working on different problems. And then it is the prerogative of the individual leaders coming from different cultural contexts with different histories to identify what within the learning experience they're having is going to translate and be useful to them back home. And so we see this all the time in a very encouraging way. We might bring a cohort of people together who are working in different countries on, for example, making it easier to start a business. Well, there's some things that they have in common and a lot of things that are going to be different. And so when we facilitate them coming together, we want to be providing some examples, real world examples of success, but then giving them opportunities to talk about those together and to ask big questions. So instead of saying, hey, if you want to lower barriers to make it easier for people who are in the informal sector to register their business and be able to have the kind of protections that formal market participation brings, there is not a step-by-step guide. What there is case study examples of how others have done this, and then some important conversations for us to have together about how would you do this in your country? What do you think would be different that you'd need to account for? Who would you reach out to partner with you on this? Who would you worry might get in the way? And let that be an organic experience, because, again, breaking new ground and doing things differently is going to require an entrepreneurial mindset, which means there's not a recipe to follow. There can be a recipe to inspire you, but there's always got to be room for the kind of innovation that working in different contexts calls for.
It strikes me that you've had so many different stories that you could share. I always like to ask guests on the pod to highlight a partner, an experience, a story that they had. It strikes me that you've just got a plethora of them. So I want to ask you specifically about Atlas Network Partner Consulting. You helped launch that initiative. You're a key part of it. You've done a lot of the coaching and consulting. And so is there an experience you had or a story where you said, man, that you left and you're like, this team just leveled up and I am inspired by the work that they're doing? Maybe that happens a lot, but care to share one with us?
Yeah, well, let me first share someone that inspired me recently, John Mustafa in South Sudan. This is obviously a place with a lot of challenges. John Mustafa came. We offered him a modest travel grant to attend one of our forums. He came and competed for what we called Think Tank Shark Tank. He had a project idea. He pitched it. His idea was he recognized locally that even though in the Constitution in South Sudan, women did have property rights, custom was denying it of them. For example, if their husband died, the family of the husband would come and just take over everything that the husband owned, and deny even the man's children. So the widow and the children were left with nothing, and so he pitched us that he believed that he could make a difference by educating these women about their rights, but then B, helping them go through the process to make sure local governments understood that to comply with the law meant honoring these women. And so he had the idea. He's the entrepreneur. He participated in our experiences, learned from other people. Again, we didn't say, here are the things you need to learn. We said, here are some people who've done things like this. Talk with them. Here's some, maybe we'll even structure kind of a case study experience so that you can walk with them through this. And then we gave him a grant to go and do this work. Well, sure enough, he not only trained thousands of women on this, but many of them reclaimed their property and turned their property into businesses so that they could support their children. And I think what we have to remember at the heart of all of this, when we think about trying to make the world a better place, the institutions of liberal democracy are the answer. Property rights, rule of law, free markets, individual freedoms. These are the things that unleash prosperity. What we also have to recognize is that it is not like updating an app and getting, and say, oh, your country needs property rights. We've got you because we know about it here and we're going to come and install it for you there. That's not how it works. It has to be something that evolves as a function of what exists there and the local people understanding how incremental improvements can happen. And so that's been the challenge. On the consulting front, I tend not to. So the consulting opportunities are, we come and facilitate a whole team. So a lot of our training opportunities are bringing together, for example, all of the communications and marketing professionals from different organizations, bring them together to create a cohort of shared learning and to help each other with ideas. Consulting will come and work with one organization and help their whole team have an experience. And that allows us to, make sure that the solutions for that organization are something that they come up with together, and you don't have, for example, what might happen if I go off to a training and I come back fired up with some good ideas, and I say, okay, we've got 3 new things we're going to do. And maybe one of my VPs says, well, have you thought about this part? Because I don't think that's going to work. And I go, oh, no, I hadn't thought about that. Well, if we're co-creating in a space, that's going to get built in, and it's not going to be a speed bump later down the road. So um, uh, the I do think that, there's this mantra, people support what they help create. You can apply that to an organization, a departmental team. You can apply that to society, democracy. And when you have some constitutional rights that constrain what government can do, and then you have some pluralism around how we're going to make decisions in the space that's appropriate to do that. It really is powerful when you sort of hedge your bets by letting everybody get involved.
Matt, we've talked a little bit about competition, but then you're talking now about this idea of everyone co-creating together. But also this idea of bringing leaders together and how all of that blend. And I'm sitting here, I got to be honest, I always find it funny that many people that will talk about the value of free markets and maybe even are working toward a future and in strengthening and spreading free market, they don't like competition when it competes with them, right? There's this irony there that I challenge folks a lot on. And yet, Atlas Network has found so much success and empowerment of others by leaning into the spirit of competition. Why is that? What is the secret sauce that we could all learn from about the value of competition?
It's the antidote to delusion.
Ooh, I like that.
I've worked only in the nonprofit space, which I sometimes bothers me because I'm so passionate about free enterprise. And sometimes I think, I ought to know a little bit about what it's like to deal with that. But when you work in the nonprofit space, you might persuade donors that you're doing a good job. They might be gracious and long-suffering and understanding. You might persuade your staff you're doing a good job. But I want to know that what I'm doing with my life every day is making a difference. We all want to contribute to something bigger than ourselves, and we want it to make the world a better place. And how do we know that? And I think many of us, all of us, are susceptible to being persuaded by sort of the assurances of those immediately around us. And I think if we all want to support each other best, we should, in a friendly way, push harder to go, how do you know? How do you know that you optimized the time and the resources that you had? And wanting to ask deeper questions doesn't automatically mean that you've got deeper answers, but it does get you on a path of some interesting conversations. For example, there's a perennial debate in the nonprofit space about measurement and metrics. And if we were a for-profit enterprise, we would look at our bottom line, and so long as we were ethical to our satisfaction of what our understanding of ethics is, and as long as we didn't break any laws, then all that really matters is how profitable were we? Did we make a lot of money? You could still ask, could we have made more? And that's interesting, but you're kind of already incentivized to ask those questions. And so in the nonprofit space, we have to ask ourselves, how do we know that we produced the best results we possibly could? And I think the way to do that is to first of all understand the results you're achieving now, create baseline data, and challenge yourselves to have some good metrics, and then create some goals that are a little bit beyond what you already know how to do. They have to scare you a little bit. And the reason for that is you have to create that margin of innovation where you go, I don't know exactly how we're going to get that done, but it'll be fun to try. And yeah, it's not, whether we said we want to grow 10% or 12% or 15%, there's not some universal meaning behind, 12 or 15. But the point is to create a space of learning. And in that experience, you look at what you learned along the way when you tried to reach that target. And as long as you don't do, you keep your ethics, you keep legal, you don't do anything illegal, of course. And you don't do anything silly, you don't game the system. And you have to create a culture where you can look at each other and be like, okay, are you just gaming this so that we can? But if you take it seriously, you come up with some interesting new ways of doing things, and you trim out some fat. You go, we didn't really need that to get there, and now we know that because when the chips were down, that wasn't important.
So I'm going to ask you here to maybe for a word of advice for a partner organization or a leader that's listening, and I'm thinking about. I don't know if you're familiar with Oklahoma City Thunder, their general manager, Sam Presti. He's known as one of the best GMs in the NBA, but he has a famous saying. He says, I'm not asking people to step outside of their comfort zone. I'm encouraging them to expand their comfort zone, right? The difference there. And so I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking about all the ways that Atlas Network has fostered an environment, partnered with people, helped everybody level up, by getting them to expand their comfort zone, by not putting them in a position where they're outside of their comfort zone, but whether it be working with a team or whether it be a group of leaders together in an event, if there's someone sitting here saying, man, I've got to get my group to think that way. I've got to start to myself as a leader branch out a little bit. What's a piece of advice that you've experienced personally or that you encourage others with that you've seen help them take a step of growth?
Well, I think it starts with your relationship with your donors. We have the advantage of being both grant seekers and grant makers, and so we see both sides of that relationship. And boy, have we learned a lot from one to the other. So, if, for example, what would keep you from making some big commitments to a donor? Well, you might worry about not reaching those goals and then losing funding. I think the relationship that you want to develop with your funders is a shared commitment to optimizing as best you can, and understanding that means that I'm either going to come back to you reporting that we knocked it out of the park and got all those metrics we promised you, or I'm going to come back to you and tell you where we fell short and what that taught us about what we're going to do next. And if you have the kind of relationship with your funders where they understand that both of those reports are super valuable and both of those types of reports are progress, then I think that should give you that expanded comfort zone to say, hey, I am going to be ambitious, but what I need is a shared understanding that we're building a learning organization. We're trying to discover how to optimize. And what that discovery process means is that when I submit a grant application, if you as a grant maker are asking for too much crystal ball and specificity about what this is going to achieve in 3 years, then I need to invite you into the reality of the learning organization that I'm leading, which is like any marketplace, I'm out here discovering what works. I don't. If you want me to just do what I already know, then we're not creating a margin of for innovation. Okay. Um, and going back to I want to know that my life mattered and what I'm doing every day matters. I don't want to just keep punching the card for what I already know how to do. I'm trying to grow. So, look at your relationships with your funders. Listen to what they're interested in and see if you can have this shared understanding. And my experience is, absolutely, there are a lot of funders out there who get this. When you're funding a lot of different orgs, you get used. You're not scandalized by disappointment. Okay, it happens. You're trying to do something different and new because you want a different result, but you have to have a shared understanding about how do we know whether what we did really mattered. And I worry about the chilling effect on ambition and risk and getting out of your comfort zone has when we try to control too much the or try to guarantee some sort of specific result. I mean, you can't guarantee results in a democracy. That would be antithetical to a thriving democracy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it strikes me as interesting that you're making a great point. In so many other areas of society, I mean, if we think about donors as investors, well, in investing, especially in venture capital, they're going to diversify their investments and expect 2 or 3 to succeed and know that, 50, 60% may fail, but that's part of the process, right? In professional athletics, right? We will celebrate a baseball player as the best in the game if he's good 30% of the time, right? If he bats 300, recognizing that, the other 70% is just part of it. And yet, a lot of times, either with that donor relationship, we may bring ourselves into a situation where it's got to be 100 out of 100, and that limits our drive to push or to do something new and to help grow society or expand the boundaries of the art of what's possible, right?
And by the way, this is the social science behind Coach, Compete, Celebrate, which is you got to have something to compare yourself to have a handle on what reality is. And so, if you if you're batting 300, how do you know if that's good or bad? Well, how many other people are batting 300? If it's not a lot, then it's good. You got to have something to compare it to, and so that's one advantage of working in a network the way we do is we have a lot of data.
Matt, want to ask you about smart bets because I'm thinking about this idea of comparing ourselves to others, and smart bets is something anyone who attends a Liberty Forum will come away thinking about. Wow, that was extremely unique, right? That look at what happened there. What is it about smart bets that you can look at and say, oh, this is a special project, or this is something unique that somebody has done here that others need to know about? What goes into that thought process?
Yeah, one of the things that we see ourselves at Atlas Network as one of our roles is we're trying to make it easy for both funders and nonprofit organizations to find each other and to identify the right matches that that both parties are going to be really happy with. And I mentioned we have all this data. We have over 500 organizations in our network, but we're evaluating much more than that because we get applications to join the network, and some are a fit and some are not. And then we're evaluating 800 grant applications a year from around the world. And Smart Bets is one of the ways that we are making it visible what we're learning from all of that due diligence. I look at our compete team, the Institute Relations Grants and Awards teams, and I marvel at them and I say, look, y'all are a due diligence machine. And it's so valuable what they do because we're not just looking at applications and data, but because of our holistic model, we're getting to know all these people and not just, at a dinner or over cocktails through facilitated training experiences where they're interacting with peers. Um, and so Smart Bets is a way that each year we can sort of highlight some organizations that we think are worthy of investment. We're investing in them, and we want to make them more visible to all of the generous donors who support us. In the event that any of them want to go, oh, that's the kind of organization I really want to get to know better. That's an important piece. We're also in that pipeline giving big awards to project outcomes, what some of the best results of our portfolio are, so to make that visible as well. But the Smart Bets is about going, this is an organization that we see big things coming in the future. And so again, it's just about ways to make more visible what we're learning, amidst all of the deep dives that we're doing around the world.
So compete, celebrate. I want to get to that piece here. We're talking about some of the really big recognition or big awards. And at each one of the Liberty Forums, right, there's a European Liberty Award, right? You're going to have an Asian Liberty Award. But you also have the Templeton Freedom Award, which is once a year. It happens at the Gala in New York, and it's a competition from all over the world. It's probably the biggest or the highest profile award maybe in the worldwide freedom movement that most partner organizations will talk about. What is the significance of the Templeton Freedom Award? What does it mean?
Well, its namesake, Sir John Templeton, is a philanthropist, the late philanthropist Sir John Templeton, who was a pioneer on mutual funds. And that's significant because it recognizes his genius in picking winners, but also hedging bets, and creating, portfolios that yield results over time. So we've been very inspired by that, and we take his, we take inspiration from him. We take it very seriously, and cooperating with the charities that he's left behind as part of his legacy. But for us, again, as the Coach, Compete, Celebrate model based on social science, you need to put a fine point on excellence. And the Templeton Freedom Award is an opportunity not just to put a fine point on one winner, but to put a fine point on a bench of finalists who represent, in that particular year, just outstanding exemplary work across our network. And we all benefit from taking a beat and looking at that bench and going, wow, it's amazing what this community can achieve, and it's encouraging. And one of the key things that we at Atlas Network want to look at over time, again, going back to, does it matter what we're doing, is we want to see it get harder and harder to pick finalists among a crop of lots and lots of amazing projects and organizations. And it has gotten harder. And the quality of finalists each year keeps getting better and better. And it's a sign that the network as a whole is getting more and more better positioned to fight these fights, to lead for freedom, to challenge illiberalism, to challenge authoritarianism, and to carry these messages forward. So it's very important that, this network is not just us, high-fiving each other and saying, oh, you care about this too? Me too. Whatever we do is awesome. of course, we respect anybody who raises their hand to do this work, but we're not going to be shy about going, that's excellence. And so we want to allow the network itself to define upward every year what it means to be good at this. And the network as a whole is redefining this, and we're all seeing that. At Atlas Network itself, as an organization and its staff, we aren't defining excellence. The network is doing that for all of us. Our job is to notice that, organize that information, and put it on a big screen.
Yeah, but one thing that Atlas Network is doing around this is y'all know how to throw a party. Like a lot of times we will go to awards banquets or celebrations, and you sit there and people get awards and they'll give speeches, everybody claps and it's nice, and maybe the wine is pretty good. But the Liberty Forums and the Freedom Dinner that happens every year when the Templeton Award is given out, I mean, there's dancing afterwards. The ceremony itself, you guys do a great job of the program. It's very interactive throughout the day. There is something unique about, we're not just celebrating by handing an award and telling someone's story, but we're inviting everybody into this experience together, and it literally is a network-wide celebration. Where does that come from? Where is that spirit? Why is it different what Atlas Network does there?
I believe our events are a reflection of the kind of people who devote their lives to this work. It's a reflection of the network. You know, if we got together and tried to make it fun and a party and it was hard to do, that would mean that the folks in this room are too serious or too reserved or whatever. And those aren't the kind of people you find who devote their lives to making the world freer, not just for themselves, but for strangers, for other people. It's as Tom Palmer often talks about, using a quote, you have to care about the freedom of other people too. And that's what you kind of find. And when you find people who devote their lives to that, I mean, we have some brilliant people who could go off and get super rich, but they spend their days in and out working on these ideas because they care about and delight in the freedom of others. And so when you get these people together, there's going to be a party. We've had times where during a dinner, there's a spontaneous dance off that happens among people cheering for one of their peers who successfully pitched something from the stage or won an award or something. And so I think you see the whole of humanity, because we're also addressing head on some very serious, dark realities of oppression and government abuse of power and injustice. And so those same people who are risking their safety and their livelihoods are the same people who are going to kick off a celebration to appreciate each other and to buoy each other up. You could get depressed really easily working in this world because you're taking on the problems that come from the abuse of government power. So it's an aspect I really appreciate, and I credit the network itself for bringing that kind of spirit to our events.
Matt, I want to bring this concept of celebration a little closer to home, because I want to talk a little bit more about Matt Warner, not just Atlas Network, but let's talk a little bit more about you. You're known as a guy at these freedom dinners that I think there was a pretty big dance off. You were part of this last year, one of the forums. You've been known as a guy from the audience to engage with activity, making sure everyone is involved. So what is it when you walk into the room and you look at the network and you look at your partners around there, you seem to come alive as you come into these freedom dinners. So what is it for you, this personal feeling as you walk into that room?
Well, I think what a lot of of my peers who, like me, have been involved in this community a long time, you it becomes more and more rewarding to have these uh, annual opportunities to reconnect and to see each other. It's hard to put into words what it means to bond over a shared commitment to something you care about, and every once in a while, someone, we do an exercise that's like, why do you do this, and I think for me, I fundamentally uh, think that I'm fundamentally offended by an assumption that someone knows better than me what I should do, right? I I think that's unjust, and I think it's an error. And and then I think that same thing about others. I feel as confident as I can be about what I think. I feel a humility about, you know, I don't like dogma. I don't like going, this is what everybody should do, right? So when I come into these events and I feel like I've found some people who think like me, who are confident about what they think and what they want, but they welcome a pluralist experience where somebody might not agree with you, and that's okay. And I think that is different and distinct from an authoritarian impulse that wants to say, gosh, if we could just get everyone to do what I think, I promise you all of this is going to go great. And I think people fall into that by mistake. They aren't necessarily all evil. I think they really believe it. And so, gosh, there's just something special about getting together with people who appreciate that subtle difference. You know, I can be confident about what I think while also being humble about not knowing that you should do exactly what I say. And I just find a lot of it's very rewarding to be around people who understand that and who appreciate that. And then over time, it's like, coming back from, it's like a reunion. And it's not just a reunion in terms of nostalgia, but it's a reunion to go, how's it been going? You want a report. You want to hear about what because you're connected and you know what everybody's up to, and you want to hear how everybody's doing. And so that's a special aspect that I think those that really invest in becoming part of the Atlas network, that's one of the benefits that we don't provide you. The network provides itself. It's peers who, you know, see each other grow, man. I mean, you've known me a long time. You've seen me, in low places where I'm frustrated, and you've bucked me up, and now I look at you with an appreciation of that, with some gratitude, and it's cool, and I just see this happening for a lot of people who know that they have people who understand them and have their back.
Matt, one of the things I've appreciated about you and watching you throughout your career is you're someone that travels for multiple reasons, right? Whether it be a forum, whether it be a coaching experience, CEO retreats that you facilitate. You're going all over the world, meeting all kinds of different people. But you don't just go and happen to work in a place and go home. You make sure that you immerse yourself in the custom, the culture where you're at. And so give some advice to the rest of us. Maybe there's a partner listening that's about to go to their first Atlas Network forum somewhere on one of the 5 continents that you put one on. Or maybe they're getting ready to go partner with another organization. They've never been there before. What advice would you have for them about that travel experience?
Well, that's an interesting question because I always do feel also a little bit chagrined that I don't know more than I do, but it is very rewarding when you know a little bit of the history of a place to then go experience it. And so I always recommend, finding a book or something to read ahead of time. I always check out Ricardo Hausman's Atlas of Economic Complexity to get a sense of the economic makeup of a place or a region. There's so much, good data that's updated there. And even some fun cultural aspects like movies or whatever that might help you appreciate a place. And the other thing that if you're from the U.S. and you go to a place, you find out very quickly that more often than not, they are following politics in your country. And as somebody who is not a politics person myself, I sort of look at what we do as sort of transcending day-to-day politics and party politics. I've grown to appreciate that people want to talk about what's happening in the U.S. and they probably know quite a bit about it. And so I also brush up a little bit on what's happening here so that I don't disappoint them in knowing about that, but also knowing a little bit what's happening in the news in their country is a great way to show a little bit of respect that you at least can come ask the right questions. It's not necessarily to come with an opinion, but to come with an appreciation for the topics that they're dealing with. So that's part of my pre-gaming.
All right, so Matt, you are in at a forum. You're coaching. You're leading a CEO retreat. You're doing something, and you've got a block of time in your calendar, right? Are you the guy that goes to the beach or does a mountain hike? Are you a foodie that's trying out something to eat? Are you going to a museum? Like what does Matt Warner do with his time when he's on the road and he has just a little bit of free time to be Matt? How do you approach that opportunity?
Well, one reality is that for more than a decade, I had young children at home. So I was frequently on the first plane out of there. Like I have 4 children and now I have a generous wife in terms of my time, but she was pretty overwhelmed. So for a long, long time, I regrettably did not get a lot of extra time in country. But more recently, I've been working on, an extra half day or whatever. And I do like to go to the museums, see whether it's a history museum or art museum. That's always like a quick, easy way to have an amazing experience. I used to try to find an antique or junk shop to get. For a while, I was getting like a metal sign. I would look for a metal sign, and then I'd end up with a gazillion metal signs. So these days, I'm less on the souvenir side, just because I pack light. I don't like to check a bag, so I tend not to bring much home with me. But yeah, I think the sorry this answer has been so long because really the quick answer is what I've been doing lately is buying some art from a street artist.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and usually something that is representative of the country in terms of its theme.
What a great idea and good advice for all of us to take and approach there. All right, Matt, we have a couple minutes left on the pod, and I've got a couple just pointed questions that I'd love your take, your direct answer. So hit me 30 seconds or less. Give me your thoughts on this. let's imagine that there's someone that watched the program today and they've gone to atlasnetwork.org and learned all about smart bets and the Liberty Forum and Freedom Dinner, and they bump into you or they call you and they say, hey, Matt, is it really going to make a difference if I get involved and if I support Atlas Network or one of the partner organizations? What do you tell them?
I tell them yes. And one of the ways that I feel conviction about that is that I'm still here 15 years later. And I wouldn't be here 15 years later if I wasn't confident that this is perhaps the most cost-effective way to increase freedom for other people around the world, including here in the United States. You have to appreciate that these are complex problems to be solved, and so you have to have a certain type of model, one that engages the entrepreneurship of others without trying to control it. And so if whether you're a donor and you want to support with funding, I'm confident that any amount of funding, even a small dollar donation, is going to be well used, because that is the culture that I inherited when I joined here, and that we've been very happy to perpetuate. We've had some very influential donors who live frugally and expect us to do the same, and we take that very seriously. And it isn't just penny pinching. It's being smart about not wasting money on things that aren't going to pay off. We have, you talked before about celebrations. We love to figure out a way to make something a blast without being expensive. There's a lot of ways to do that, and some of the best parties are that way. But the value proposition is this. I know that you said 30 seconds. So I apologize. Let's just start my answer now. The value proposition is this. When what people need to know is that USAID was a $50 billion budget annually. This was an organization that everybody had problems with, from Jeffrey Sachs to the practitioners on the ground to right wing, left wing, whatever, because it doesn't work to do it that way. The value proposition to join Atlas Network is we are achieving the aims of USAID in its best version, and we're doing it for pennies on the dollar, because the key thing is to find the right partners on the ground who have their own vision for what they want to do. We talked before about you find an entrepreneur because they're going to do it with or without you. You're there to make it faster, easier, more likely. And that's what supporting Atlas Network does, is you're connecting to the right entrepreneurs, and then you're making it faster, easier, and more likely that they achieve tangible increases in freedom for real people.
Matt, I wonder about the sense of urgency. Someone who's reading the newspaper, or they're hearing about what's happening all over the globe. I'm thinking about personally conversations that I'm able to have with the Free Syria Center and with partners that are in Ukraine or other troubled parts of the world right now. And so I wonder, if someone's thinking about getting involved in Atlas Network, what would you tell them about why now is the right time?
We're scaling up based on a proven model of success. We are a learning organization, so when we develop ideas, we test them. Right now, we are increasing our investments in livelihood projects, where people who are left out of the formal marketplace because they're in the informal sector. There are very simple reasons that are not always simple to fix, but there's simple reasons why 50, 60, 70, sometimes 80, 90% of a workforce in a country operates in the informal sector, where they're subject to predation and abuse by police and government bureaucracies. And this is why it's important. It's not just morally important for the dignity of those individuals, which is sufficient to get us riled up and involved. But on top of that, the pathway to economic growth and prosperity and peace for these countries is to unleash the entrepreneurial potential of this 50 to 80% of their workforce that is trapped outside of the system. And you have to understand how surgically powerful what we're doing is, which is we find the entrepreneurial organization that understands how to make it quicker and easier. Imagine a dam is holding back a lake of entrepreneurial energy. And these guys know how to start to open it up so that in a positive way, there is a flood of entrepreneurship coming. And it has to do with going in and selling the government. Doesn't matter if they're authoritarian dictators. This has happened in our pilot portfolio. You go and sell them on the economic success of our country is going to be a function of having diversity of firm sizes, not just the big ones that you prop up at the state and then the tiny ones that we tolerate, but letting people grow their businesses by being able to register and be legal, being able to have a bank account, being able to grow their inventory in a place that they can protect it from theft because there's no recourse if you're illegal. This is probably, I think, in terms of things we can actually do, this has got to be the biggest bang for the buck on increasing global prosperity, dignity, and ending poverty. And we've got a very healthy portfolio of about 28 projects around the world right now. And we are reviewing applications later this year on another crop. And our grant sizes are $30,000 to $50,000 to $60,000 to get these kinds of changes done. So join this effort. I can't think of anything more cost-effective and more morally rewarding, as well as pragmatically productive.
Matt, we're talking about so much here involved in the worldwide freedom movement, but it can't really operate on good intentions, great spirit, passion alone. It takes resources. So what is it that Atlas Network needs, and why is financial support so important?
Well, Atlas Network is supporting organizations around the world today. We're evaluating every day new organizations that could receive support. If you are able to support Atlas Network with money today, we will use that money very carefully to find the best opportunities to increase freedom around the world with real results.
Matt, I appreciate that you point out money in particular. So if a donor, a contributor right now goes to atlasnetwork.org and makes a donation, where does that money go?
Well, we're proud of our record of keeping our overhead low and getting most of the money out the door to the people on the ground who are working to increase freedom around the world. We have organizations in 100+ countries that we've been supporting in different ways. If you support Atlas Network today, we find opportunities to use that money to either send money to a project on the ground to provide training for leaders who are operating those projects, or celebrating the successes and turning those successes into case study curriculum to help spread innovative project ideas around the world.
Matt, let's just say I'm a donor sitting across from you, and I disclose to you that I'm considering making a gift to Atlas Network, that I understand everything you're saying. But why do I need to make that gift today?
Well, we're right now increasing our portfolio for supporting organizations that are tackling real barriers to freedom. We are evaluating 800 projects a year, and right now we are increasing the number of grants that we are making available to the projects because we've been getting such amazing project opportunities to support. I welcome your additional support today because we will use that right away to get freedom projects on the ground started, extended, and get new results today.
Matt, we talked about return on investment earlier in the pod, and I'm wondering if a donor is watching right now and they're on atlasnetwork.org getting ready to make a contribution, but they're wondering, what's the return on investment going to be? Or more importantly, what is this impact? Do I really need to make this gift right now? How would you answer that question for them to take action?
So with your support now, we are going to increase the number of projects that we can support in our portfolio. You as a donor will have access to see just what has been achieved through that portfolio, which projects around the world made it easier for individuals to register their business, to have protection from police in order to grow their business and to stop having to pay bribes. We're going to share with you the returns on that portfolio, which projects were successful, and those that weren't successful, what have they learned that they're going to apply to continue this fight next year. So this is like, you can anticipate a portfolio review that helps you understand where we invested your money, what it achieved, and what it taught us in order to improve the portfolio results next year.
Matt, one of the things we do on the program here is we call it the last word, and we always ask our guests after a great conversation on the pod, what's the main thing that stood out to you, or what's the lasting impression that you'd like to leave viewer, listener of this podcast? So, Matt Warner, you get the last word.
You know, philanthropy isn't easy. Giving money away is easy. Giving money away and knowing that it was productive and optimal, it isn't easy. We have teams that work very hard in a spirit of transparency and honesty and integrity to find the best, most valuable places to put resources, and then to hedge those bets with a community of support and peer learning and celebration of successes. And so whether you support Atlas Network or you look for models that follow this kind of series of mechanisms, the end of USAID is a prompt for all of us in private philanthropy to up our game and to take it as seriously as you take any enterprise. And I'm excited about what kind of new horizons we're pursuing in possibilities of making private philanthropy pay off for prosperity and the end of poverty around the world.
Folks, I encourage you to support Atlas Network. Join me in participating and investing in their work and the partners all around the globe. Matt, thank you so much for your time and conversation today. I've learned a lot. I think everyone else did as well. And I look forward to seeing you at another Atlas Network experience in the future. Folks, until next time, we'll see you on the Atlas Network with Mike Carnuccio.